I avoided pain from my yoga practice for 3 years because modern yoga told me to listen to my body and find my ease. Not only did this hold me back from making true progress, but it also blurred the line between pain that injures and fire that's necessary for transformation. I'm Sushmita, but you can call me Sushi, and for the last month, I've spent all my time here at KPJAYI, the source of Ashtanga Yoga, and my experience has taught me something very different from what I hear in modern studios today. I've had to walk through the fire and feel the intense heat and the discomfort that the practice brings up. And I noticed that sometimes we need to walk through that fire. We need to feel that razor's edge between backing off when we're in pain, but at the same time seeing pain as almost like a price to pay for burning away that old self. And if you want to go deeper than these half-truths like listen to your body and discover this ancient time-tested practice that truly transforms you, there's a link for that in the description below. But today I'm going to be breaking down the concept of tapas and how to recognize the difference between harmful pain and transformative fire. So this ancient wisdom, if you know this really well, it might just be the missing piece in your practice. So let's dive right in. So when I started my yoga journey a long time ago, I went to a few Hatha yoga classes in my neighborhood, and it was all about like gentle stretching, slow breathing, and the calm that comes from Shavasana, right? And we were all encouraged to be kind to ourselves, to never push, to honor our limits, and it was a valuable starting point. But after a while, I was young, and honestly, I was just bored with all of this, and I felt stuck because I couldn't do more, and I knew I wanted to do more. And my body wasn't changing very much, and my mind, which really struggled to sit still in classes at that time, felt like it was almost being punished, and so I quit. I tried many other things, but it was only much later in my life that I stumbled upon a traditional Ashtanga Yoga shala, and it was like going to other studios was nothing like it. By walking into this studio, I was like, wow, this is completely different, because the air was thick, it was like heat mixed with sweat, and I could hear the sound of this deep rhythmic breathing reverberate through the whole room. And there was no like gentle music or incense or anything like that. There was just the teacher's sharp, Sanskrit count. And the practice was intense and quite demanding, and frankly I felt super uncomfortable because I never quite seen students move with such a focused energy, and their bodies were doing these intense positions. It was glistening with sweat, but then their faces were like deep in concentration. And my first class, I was honestly in shock because the teacher moved around the room, but there was no guidance, and I was like, what is going on here? And he was just making physical adjustments in the way that it was done in Mysore and not saying much. And before that, I was used to a teacher guiding and showing, and then you copy the teacher. But the first time I received a physical adjustment, I was doing the shoulder opening position, and I didn't even know that I still had access to that range of motion. It felt both obviously terrifying, but also at the same time strangely liberating. And I was a bit confused because I was like, how was I not able to access this on my own? And how come this teacher who didn't say anything was able to get me there without guiding me through it or giving me a variation or anything like that? And everything that I'd been taught in my Hatha Yoga training so far told me this was wrong, this was aggressive, you shouldn't be pushing a person into a posture. And it was the opposite of listening to my body, right? But I just dismissed it because I was there and I finished the class and I was lying there in Shavasana, and I clearly remember this moment. My body was completely dismantled, I should tell you. My muscles had this kind of ache and this depth that I'd never quite experienced before. But underneath this exhaustion, underneath this feeling of I don't know what just happened, something else was stirring. It was like a strange clarity and this feeling of almost being wrung out like a cloth and cleansed from the inside out. And for the first time ever, I felt like something had fundamentally shifted. Not just that I was being temporarily pacified with all these, nice, gentle stretches. And I couldn't understand it. I just couldn't understand how the gentle path of Hatha Yoga left me feeling stagnant. But this path, which was intense, sometimes really uncomfortable, somehow left me feeling transformed. And I saw students who'd practiced there for years, and they moved with this kind of grace and this strength that almost seemed superhuman to see for me. And I saw the depth and the focus, this inner stillness that they carried, and I was hooked. I was like, this is what I need, this is what I've been craving. And if they can do this 6 times a week at this intensity and not be injured, am I just holding myself back? Am I not doing as much as I could be doing? And so I kept going back to that same shala, determined to try and understand why these people were so willing to put themselves through that much discomfort, and they're walking through the fire every single day. So I was just curious, and I was like, okay, let's go see what actually happens if I do that. And the Sanskrit word for this is tapas. Now, tapas comes from the root word tap, which means to burn or to heat, and it's often translated as discipline, as austerity, or even passion. And it's like this inner fire that fuels your transformation. So think of it as this disciplined, conscious effort that you make to burn away your own impurities. And it's not just physical impurities I'm talking about. It's also this mental and emotional baggage that we've been carrying on for so long that keeps on holding us back. When a blacksmith, for example, heats this raw metal, he's not just destroying the metal. All he's doing is he's trying to beat it so that it becomes more pliable. He puts it in the fire, he heats it up so that it can be forged into a sword. In and through that hammering process, in and through that pain, that heating up, all of that, the sword becomes stronger and stronger and more refined. And so tapas is the fire, but it's also the hammer that's used to forge the sword. And in that heat, in that sense of pain and discomfort, it's almost like we're burning away our complacency, we're burning away our old habits, and we're burning away our limiting beliefs. So it's not just you're physically shaping your body through the asanas, you're also working on the mental level. In Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, Sutra number 2.43, he says, 𝐻𝐸𝐸 siddhira shuddhi-kshayaat tapasaha. And Patanjali says that through the practice of tapas, these impurities are destroyed and the body and the senses become perfected. And this purification isn't just about sweating, it's about burning away samskaras, these deep-seated emotional patterns that hold us back and kind of dictate what keeps us stuck for so long in the same repeating cycles of suffering. And so tapas is the force that generates enough heat to melt down all of those old grooves so that we can make new, more conscious pathways. And when I understood this, then the intense heat of that Ashtanga room kind of made sense, right? You need to create a space that's heated enough to allow this purification to happen. And the demanding sequence, the focused breathing, it was all designed so that we can build this kind of internal fire or tapas. And it's not punishment. You're not putting yourself through torture for no reason at all. It's about purification. And the practice was just this crucible for this purification to happen. And so my habits, my fears, my resistance needed to be put under some degree of pressure or some degree of strain so that it could transform. And the discomfort that comes from the ego resisting its own death is actually far greater than any kind of soreness or muscles that you'll feel after your practice. And understanding tapas actually helped me kind of clarify what it means to listen to your body, because it may not be a completely false thing to say that. It's just an incomplete truth. Because many of us, especially when we're starting out, we don't know how to interpret the signals of our body. We don't know what the body is saying. Is the sensation a warning sign of an imminent injury? Or is it just the voice of our own laziness, our own fear, our own resistance that's trying to keep us in our comfort zone? And because we can't distinguish between the two, without the wisdom of understanding what tapas is, it's hard to tell the difference, right? But we can make this actually transformative if we notice the difference. And instead of taking this as the heat of transformation, we then mistake it as this threat of destruction, and then we back away from the very thing that could potentially set us free. So this raises a very practical question. So we know that some discomfort is transformative and some will just injure you. So how do we walk that razor's edge between transformation and injury? So after basically helping loads of students and also years of my own self-practice, I've come up with this simple rule. It's not perfect, but basically there's bad pain and good pain. Now, bad pain is the body's intelligent sign of danger. It's often felt like this sharp, shooting, electric, or searing pain, and it's frequently felt near the joints. So, you see, like the elbows, the shoulders, the knees, the wrists, the lower back, the neck. These are the places where you'll usually feel this sharp shooting electric pain, and this is a red flag. So it's a clear message for you to stop, to back away, and do not push through this kind of pain, because it's a violation of ahimsa, and ahimsa is the principle of non-violence. And if we are violent towards our own bodies, how can we be, good practitioners, good people by practicing yoga? And almost every significant yoga injury that I've seen comes from someone at some point just ignoring this initial signal and pushing past through it to get a pose. But there's a cost, right? The cost is that you're actually just like violating this principle of ahimsa, and you're going to end up injuring yourself. On the flip side, there is such a thing as good pain. And good pain, on the other hand, feels different. It has a different qualitative feeling, but I know you'll notice once you start practicing for a while. It's often like this deep, dull ache of a muscle reaching its limit and then gets stronger at the edge of that limit. It's an intense burning sensation of the fascia releasing. So you'll often feel this in your muscles, and this feeling is like a feeling of growth. You're not injuring yourself, you're not putting yourself in any real danger, but it's challenging and not threatening. And the way that you'll see this is that it feels like a deep stretch in the belly of a muscle, right? It's not at the joint. And most importantly, the way that you know whether it's a good pain or a bad pain is that when you breathe into this sensation, it doesn't scream louder at you. In fact, most likely it softens, it shifts, and it becomes something that gives you more space. So that's how you know the difference between good pain and bad pain. And tapas isn't about gritting your way through bad pain just to get to the other side, or putting yourself through torture or self-flagellating, right? True tapas is about consistent, disciplined, and surrendered effort. So instead of surrendering, sometimes we resist, and that becomes the source of most of our struggle. And surrendering, by the way, is not passivity. It's an active and courageous thing to do, because we stop fighting the reality of the stretch. We stop resisting. And surrender is what actually allows the fire to purify you, to wash through you, instead of consuming you entirely. And the true purpose of building this kind of inner fire, this tapas, isn't just to nail impressive yoga poses, because the mat ultimately becomes a laboratory for our life. And the discipline, the resilience, the awareness that we cultivate on the mat in the heat of the practice is actually meant to be carried out off the mat into the world. And if your yoga practice only makes you good at yoga and yoga poses, then you're kind of missing the point. So in daily life, what we've got to do is choose tapas as a way or a mental model that gives us the discipline to choose the hard right over the easier wrong. And so it's in staying in that difficult conversation with your partner when all you want to do is shut down. It's that self-control that you have in putting your phone away before you get to work. It's the courage that you have to actually face your own uncomfortable truths, your addictions, your shortcomings, all the things that actually hold you back, with the same kind of steadiness and ease that you had when you were holding a challenging pose. And for me, this was the most profound shift, because the consistency of showing up on my mat, even on the days when I didn't want to do it, even the days when I had all this laziness, built inside of me this new kind of integrity. The discipline that I'd built then began to melt away my habits of procrastination, my laziness, my self-doubt, all these other things. And the ability to stay present with intense discomfort and simply just breathe through it instead of running away from it began to give me this greater capacity. And I know this is my own experience, but I promise you, if you actually lean into the tapas, it'll give you the tools to handle emotional distress. So tapas off the mat means consciously choosing discomfort for the sake of growth. So is listen to your body a lie? I think not entirely. It's just like a dangerously incomplete truth, because our bodies are constantly speaking to us, right? And it's important that we listen to our bodies, but they often speak in whispers and subtle cues and sensations, and we don't know how to read that language yet. And the voice of our fears, our ego, our self-judgment, our complacency, it's often louder and it's shouting over those subtle whispers. So it's not like your body is not speaking to you, it's just that the other voices are often louder. So the ancient wisdom of tapas gives us the training that we need to become better listeners to our own bodies. And it teaches us to build that inner fire, this disciplined container, so that we can be strong enough to hold the discomfort without breaking. And within that container, within that structure, we can finally begin to tell the difference between signals of genuine danger when we're in a stretch and the friction of just real change of our personalities moving and changing with the practice. And we learn that growth doesn't happen in the comfort zone. We've got to really walk that razor's edge and stay in the tapas to change, to transform. And so I hope that was useful, because that's all I have for you today. By the way, if you are struggling to push yourself into the fire of transformation by yourself, there's a link in the description below. Don't worry, it's not a 21-day yoga challenge or a wellness webinar. It's just a video of me telling you how I might be able to solve your problem, and I might encourage you to book a call with me if it feels like the right fit for you. And you don't have to click, there's no pressure at all. I'm just glad you watched till the very end. And if you do enjoy these videos, make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel, because then that tells the algorithm to send you more of my videos. As always, if you have any questions, comment them down below. And I hope you have a lovely day ahead, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.